John, this question comes from Carrie. Carrie asks, how can I handle a dealer telling me he wants to be with a competitor station or group of stations and has no money left for me?
Gary, again, I can't sell your station. You got to sell your station, the value of your station. You know, the person that asked me, hey, I got a little small station, and these guys are advertising on some bigger stations. Well, then there's the reach, and frequency. The reach and frequency argument. You know, one is reach and the other is frequency. Um, that that's got to be part of that. The other thing, again, might be, again, to try to do something where you give them a creative example and then look them in the eye and say, look, if you love this creative, you need to spend some money with me. I spent some money to bring this creative to you. But other than that, this revolves around reach and frequency. I don't know what the format for your station is. Again, this guy out in Nebraska, this AM station, every morning they do the local farm report, the weather, the local high school football game. I don't know where you are and what your situation is, but there's got to be something unique about your station that you can sell. Um, Again, I don't know if they're choosing somebody else and not you. The only thing I can suggest is maybe there's a reach and frequency type argument that you can make. Mr. Dealer, for just a little money, you can own my station. Where you're buying 4 ads every day on this big gun, you can buy 40 ads on my station. Those are the kinds of things you got to do. Here again, you can go to LBS, and they've got all kinds of discussions about this issue.
John, next question comes from Connie. Connie says, how would you recommend starting a conversation with a dealer's agency who seems to be keeping me away from having any real shot at the business?
Well, remember this. You can go to that ad agency, and one of the things they may say to you, I'll bet a whole bunch of you out there have heard this: don't you dare go to my client. Don't you dare go to my client. That's my client. You go to my client, I'll never do any business with you. Well, they're not doing any business with you now. The hell with them. Go to the client, go to the dealer and say, hey, Mr. Dealer, I got a way to drive down your cost. How much are you spending per vehicle retail? See if you can get the number out of them. I got a way. I've got a tried and true way to drive down your cost per vehicle retail. So that's one approach. The other approach, you've heard me talk about this a little bit, go to the agency with a price selection, unique selling proposition idea. I don't know what the ads are that this ad agency is producing, but take a look at them. See if they are prominently posting the web address at the bottom of the ad, as you saw in my 2 examples, the Arrigo Brothers and JM Lexus. Up on the ad 100% of the time has got to be the dealer's web address. If that ad agency is making the mistake, as many of them do, of not doing that, go to them and say, hey, I got a way to help you become more effective, and hey, this dealer to become more effective. I'll share a couple of ways to do that, but you got to remember where these ideas came from, and you got to give me your word that you will spend some money with me if you adopt my ideas. That other than that kind of thing, if this advertising agency just hates you, there's not a whole heck of a lot you can do about it except that kind of thing. You know, and also remember this, please, everyone. Persistence is critically important here. I tell you, as a dealer, when I was a dealer and I had somebody call on me and be darn persistent about it, I mean, week after week after week after week, I recognized that as somebody I probably wanted to do business with. Auto dealers love people who are persistent. They love it. They may tell you they don't, but they love it. You know why? That's what they want working for them. Persistent salespeople. For sure. Always remember that. I don't care what they say to you. Keep going back and talking to them. Finally, one day, finally, I've actually said this to some people. You know, I'm going to do some business with you because I'm tired of you coming in here and bugging the hell out of me. For real. So the ad agencies, ladies and gentlemen, are a bane to our existence. I hate them, but they're here and we got to deal with them. So coming up with creative ideas, looking at what they are doing and finding flaws in what they're doing. And, you know, if you've got an ad agency that is doing creative for billboards for a dealer, you need to go to that ad agency and say, listen, let's us figure out if those billboards are really bringing this guy any business. Well, he likes the billboards. Listen, every dealer in the country who uses outdoor advertising seems to have a higher cost per vehicle retail than dealers who don't use outdoor advertising. That's across the country on the average. So be careful of that. But, hey, Mr. Ad Agency, let me show you how I can help you help him. How I can help you help that dealer drive down his cost per vehicle retail. If they throw you out, go to the dealer. You haven't lost a thing.
This comes from Lisa, who asks, are there any rules that prohibit dealers from advertising outside their own marketing area?
Absolutely not. If you have a dealer tell you that the manufacturer won't let him advertise outside his area, baloney. They want, again, let's talk about that guy in Nebraska. Let's talk about that guy. Let's talk about this guy right here. I promise you, in that big red circle there for KRVN, there's probably a dozen dealers of that dealer's brand, right? Maybe more than a dozen. Who knows? He's advertising in front of all of them. And remember this, if you're in a major metro, if you're in a major metro, Miami, Florida, I ran two of the largest Ford stores in Miami, Florida. They were in the top 100 Ford dealers in the United States. There's 4,000 Ford dealers. I was in the top two of them in the top 100. I advertised 6 or 8 deep on radio. I advertised on television up and down. Well, heck, I advertised in the neighborhoods of 7 other Ford dealers in Fort Lauderdale and Miami and all over the place. No, there is no rule against doing that. If you buy radio and television and it happens, and that broadcast area happens to fall in another marketplace of another Ford dealer, another, Toyota dealer, so what? The manufacturer cannot stop you from doing that. That would be a violation of their agreement. You may also hear some dealers tell you, well, I have an agreement with the Ford dealer over in the town next to mine not to advertise in his area, and he has an agreement not to advertise in my area. Well, that might be for the Ford dealer, but what about the Chevy dealer? So you're the Ford guy and you're in Fort Lauderdale, but the Chevy dealer in Palm Beach advertises in your area, and he's stealing some of your Ford business and selling those people Silverado pickups. Does the Chevy manufacturer tell him, no, 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 you can't do that? Of course not. Here again, this is this pump in, pump out issue. And so, yeah, there are dealers who say that to you. If they're dealers that actually think that way, they need to sell their dealerships, retire, and move to Florida, because they're eventually going to get murdered. Somebody's going to pick their pocket. There are strategies now around the country, ladies and gentlemen, where there are multiple dealer groups buying small little dealers outside of major metro areas. Like, for example, Lithonia, Georgia, outside of Atlanta. They buy a little dealership in that place and then advertise in Atlanta. Advertise to the 9 million people living in Atlanta. And their message is, drive out here to Lithonia and we're going to sell you a vehicle way less than any of those dealers in Atlanta because our rent is less. Our facility cost is lower. Our overhead's lower. Low overhead means low price. Like this Toyota Corolla for $239 a month. Bingo. So yeah, that strategy is now being used around the country. Around the country. And hey, the dealer in the big town has a bunch of little dealers around him, and he advertises in those little dealers area and says, I have a bigger selection than the dealer in your town, and because I'm such a big volume dealer, I can sell them for less than the guy in the little town outside of Indianapolis. So it cuts both ways. So absolutely no, no, no. Don't let a dealer say, yeah, you got an agreement with the local Toyota dealer in the town next to yours? What about the local Mazda dealer in the town next to yours? What happens if he advertises in your area? Can you advertise in his area because you want to compete against the Mazda dealer? Sure. Why not? You better. Good question.
John, this question comes from Tim. Tim asks, does average retail spend account for co-op reimbursement? My dealer clients are getting 50 to 100% of compliant advertising back. What's your experience in utilizing co-op for local marketing?
Well, co-op is just bonus money that's coming to the dealer from the manufacturer, and to comply with that, typically again, a lot of dealers use their co-op money to subsidize service mailers, parts mailers, that kind of thing. However, some dealers also use some of that money against other kinds of marketing and advertising. But they've got to get approvals from the manufacturer for some of that. Here again, I will tell you that co-op is normally not a major factor in how much money you spend on television and radio. Not a major factor. However, it is in some way affected by co-op, but very little. I don't know of any super successful radio and television advertisers, dealerships that advertise on radio and television that rely on co-op. They're typically taking that co-op money by getting approvals for other than broadcast radio and broadcast television. Again, I'm not suggesting that they don't do that. It's just that I don't see too much of it. It's not a huge factor.
John, Sarah asks this question. What do I do when a dealer won't tell me his cost per vehicle retail?
Sarah, nothing. If he's not going to tell you that, there's not much you can do about it, except try to give him, by the way, I've had some dealers not tell me or lie to me about it. Sometimes they won't tell you because they're embarrassed to tell you that they're paying $850 per vehicle retail. But, Sarah, the answer to that question is try to give him examples of other people who are operating with very low marketing and advertising costs as it relates as it relates to revenue, as it relates to total volume of sales. Again, you don't have to use another auto dealer. You could use a furniture dealer. You could use a motorcycle dealer. You could use, somebody else. And you might use it as a percentage of revenue. But what you might do is show them this slide right here and say, Mr. Dealer, okay, you don't want to tell me what your cost per vehicle retail is, but here's what NADA says cost per vehicle retail is on a national basis. And by the way, Sarah, please remember, this is new and used combined, not just new vehicles, cost per vehicle retail, but used. And the reason for that is there are some dealers who fudge the number a little bit. They take some of their used car advertising and put it on the new side, and some new car advertising and put it on the used side. Or there are dealers that advertise on a radio ad or a television ad a new vehicle price point and a used vehicle price point. They do them in the same ad. You can get this new Toyota Corolla for $239 a month, or this certified pre-owned Toyota Corolla for $189 a month. You pick. That kind of thing. So now, when the bill comes in at the end of the month, the dealer says, well, take that and tell the manufacturer that I spent it all on new vehicle advertising. And by the way, the question just before this about getting 100% of your money back on co-op, if you happen to submit a television ad or a radio ad looking for approval for co-op, one of the things you cannot do is do a new car and a used car in the same ad. You can only do a new one. So be careful about that. See, the dealer knows that. Those rules are pretty specific. So, Sarah, what I would do is I would show him this slide and say, look, Mr. Dealer, you don't want to tell me. This is not any kind of hidden piece of information. This is not critical information. This is really not a big deal. But I understand if you don't want to tell me. You don't want to tell me about your business. You want to keep it close to the vest. Just tell me. For 2022, am I over or under? Give me the over-under. Are you over or are you under? Sarah, if he tells you he's under, he could be lying to you. But if he's telling you the truth, then you probably ought to go find another prospect. Or you need to be prepared to say, well, I can drive your cost per vehicle retail well under this number. Oh, yeah? How? Let me show you this creative. Boom. If he says he's over, $349 a month or $390 or $400 or whatever the over under. Are you over $400 a month? Hell yeah. If he says that to you, you got a prospect. Now you're in a selling situation. Now you say to him, I got it. I got it made. Mr. Dealer, are you under this? Hell, I'm half as much as that. I'm $200 a car. Really? Wow. Congratulations. Go find yourself another dealer. I'm being a little facetious, but that could be the outcome of this. But at least ask the over-under if he won't tell you.
John, this question comes from Carrie, who asks, how do you respond to a dealer that says, I don't need to advertise, I'm selling enough?
Ha! God, Carrie, I'm selling enough. I don't need to advertise. I'm selling enough. Gary, this is a person who needs to sell that dealership and move to Florida. And by the way, if you're in Florida, then he needs to move to the Bahamas, go down to the Caribbean islands. He needs to. I don't know of a dealer who has ever said, if you have that person, oh my God, I don't need to advertise. I'm selling enough. I guess I'd look him in the eye with an incredulous look on my face and say, are you telling me that if I had a way for you to spend $5,000 to make an additional $25,000, you wouldn't do it? There's no deal. Dealers are riverboat gamblers, all of them. They are. It's the nature of the beast. You mean to tell me, Mr. Dealer, if I could almost guarantee you, I can't guarantee you, but I can almost guarantee you that if you spent $5,000 with me and we did a compelling price point piece of advertising, and you could, for that $5,000, you could make 25 or 30 or 40 or 50, you wouldn't do it? Really? Okay. I'm going down the street to find somebody that will. You know, and no matter what that whoever that franchise dealer is, you need to go to the next town over and call on his competitor, because this guy is obviously not very competitive. This is somebody who just doesn't get it. You need to go to his competitors close to him and say to them, you know what? Let me just tell you, I'm going to tell you a story. This guy over here in, Smallville told me that he's selling enough cars and he doesn't want to advertise. You got an opportunity to pick his pocket. Pick his pocket clean. Let me show you how. Boom. That's what I do.
John, last question comes from Jennifer. Jennifer asks, what is the best way a dealer can use broadcast to enhance their digital marketing?
Jennifer, a great ending question. Obviously, make sure if it's a television ad, make sure at the bottom of the ad, you have that dealer's website in a letterbox. Make sure that if you're a radio station, that you're repeating the dealer's website at least 3 times in the ad. The next thing you do is you make sure that the station's website is a place where this dealer advertises. Again, that advertisement, I have got example after example after example here again on LBS, example after example of ads that are being run on stations websites that drive the customer. Every single one of them says some compelling message, and it says on the website, the station's website, click here for more details. Let me give you an example of this. Everyone listen to this example. A dealer in a small town outside of Orlando, Florida, advertised a small banner ad advertising, this is a few years ago, advertising. The banner ad ran on a television station's website, and it rotated on the website, and it was for a Kia for $89 a month. Now, since then, he's increased that price a lot. Maybe it's $139 now. I don't know. But back then, it was $89 a month. He paid $1,000 a month for that website. His dealership was 60 miles away from Orlando, Florida. He sold 20 vehicles a month. 20 vehicles a month from people that inquired, that on that website, on the television station's website, and it drove them to the dealer's website. They captured this person. This person inquired, asked, what are the details of the $89 a month? Somebody called him back, got him to drive over there, and they were selling 20 a month. He giggled about it. He laughed about it. Divide 20 into 1,000. How much is that per vehicle retail? $50. $50 a month. Are you kidding me? There's not a dealer in the world who wouldn't pay $50 to get a customer to buy a car from him. Not a dealer in the world. So, to answer your question, try to combine whatever you're doing in broadcast, whatever the creative is, the price point creative, combine that with a banner ad on your station's website. However many eyes are coming to your website, your station's website, they're coming to your website for one of a few things, right? Weather, sports. You know, if you're in a small place, a lot of times they're coming to your website to look for the high school sports stuff. You know, I used to remark many years ago how unbelievable it was in the state of Indiana. High school basketball was God in the state of Indiana. And I thought to myself, if I was a radio station in Indiana in some small town, I would be carrying the high school basketball games no matter what. And the scores of all the games and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so to answer your question, make sure that you're driving, that your station, radio or television, is driving customers to the dealer's website in the broadcast, letterbox at the bottom of the television ad, repeat the web address 3 times in the radio ads, and then do the same kind of thing, a banner ad on the station's website. Now, remember, there's one thing. You don't want to give away the banner ad on the radio station or the television station. You want to charge for it. Don't let the dealer tell you, don't let the dealer say to you, well, I'll buy your time on your radio station, your television station, but you got to give me the banner ad. You just tell them, my boss ain't letting me do that. This banner ad is very valuable. And tell them the story about the guy selling cars in, you know, tell them. You got to have stories like that. That's a great, great question.